Hello, everyone, and welcome to Talk of the Town. My name is Tom Foster. I'm here with Iris Dunham, my camera person, my editor, producer, and everything else we need behind that camera. Someday she'll be out front and showing us all up. You know, as we look at the town of Clinton, as you know, one of the things that I try to highlight are all the positive things in Clinton, whether it be people, places, things. And, you know, when we look at the town of Clinton, we look to the future. We sometimes focus on the present, but one of the things we have to do is maintain some of the historic things we have in town and maintain some of the property the way it should be maintained. And we have a great conservation committee here in town whose task is to help maintain the way Clinton should be. And with me today is the chairman of the conservation committee, Nick Webb. Nick, welcome to the show.
Hey, Tom. Great to be here.
Great. Now, you know, one of the things I always ask people before we start talking about the conservation committee is, first of all, give me a little background about yourself.
Sure. So I'm new to Clinton. Well, relatively new to Clinton. I've been here for about 2 years. Been a great 2 years. I love Clinton. Before that, though, my family had been in and around this area quite a bit. Spent most of my life working in New York City, commuting from Stamford, Connecticut. So that was
a little bit different than commuting from your house to right here.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And then actually had a stint in London and then some time in Philly before I came here. But since I've been here, this kind of is, I don't think we'll be moving after this, or at least I hope not. So I wanted to put down roots and get familiar with what's going on. I've always been interested in the environment. As you probably know, I bend people's ears.
Yeah.
So joining the Conservation Commission was a natural for me, and so I started. And within half a year, the current chairman, who's still on the commission and is fabulous, didn't want to be the chairman anymore, and everybody just piled on it, and it was going to be
Mikey will do
me.
it.
Yeah.
Now, the other thing is, you know, you've been in London, you've been in Philadelphia, you've been around. You're a Chiefs fan, you know, so you obviously have some Kansas City roots with you as well.
Very
but
much so.
You know, I always ask people, what drew you to Clinton? What made you want to come here? Number one, number two, why did you want to, you know, put down roots here?
Honestly, it was kind of a no-brainer. I mean, first we have family in the area, so that was a good start. But what attracted me to Clinton is it's got a small town feel. It's got beautiful waterfront. It's got nice beach. It's got wonderful people. The area that we settled in is really terrific. So Clinton itself is just a fabulous community that, as you said at the start, it's just absolutely important and imperative that we preserve it in the way it should be.
Absolutely. And it's nice, you know, where you live. And matter of fact, Nick's a neighbor of mine. It's nice to be able to just walk down to the private beach, get on your kayak, and go out and tour Long Island Sound, which you and your wife Susan do all the time. And I mean, that you can't beat that, Nick. I mean, where in the United States you're going to find that type of neighborhood feel, and also have the pleasure of being on the water. And you're only an hour and a half from New York, an hour and a half from Boston. So I think this is definitely a good place to be.
I think people who have been here a long time
Take it for granted.
They take it for granted.
Right.
But as a newcomer, I just see all the natural beauty that's in Clinton, and it's something that, we can absolutely take the level up. There's certainly some eyesores in this town that need to be fixed, but it really is a fabulous, fabulous place.
Now, one of the things that Nick should be proud of, Nick was named Person of the Week several weeks ago, and that was, you're making a difference here in Clinton in the environment. So let's talk about what the Conservation Commission is all about, and how's it made up, and what are some of your goals and objectives?
Sure. Okay. Well, we're a town commission, so I have to be elected by the town committee, which everybody does. And there's a stipulation about how many Democrats and Republicans. So it's a full-blown commission with the primary goal was to provide the town maps of Clinton, of all sort of free space, unbuilt on space, vacant space, but also all the different types, what are the historical places within Clinton. There's just a number of layers that we've added to the if you ever go onto the Town of Clinton website,
Yep.
and they've got that GIS, there's a number of those layers that we've put in there.
Good.
And that was our first mandate.
Now, before we move into that mandate, you said you have to be elected by the town committee. You mean the town council?
Yeah.
They're the ones that vote on it?
That's
Okay.
right.
And so it's not really an elective office by the town, it's an elective office by the committee who's elected.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha.
That's right.
Okay.
That's
So
right.
now let's talk about those layers.
Well, the layers, but that's kind of uninteresting.
Yeah, right.
I mean, let's be real.
Yeah.
I mean, you join the Conservation Commission because you want to protect the land and you want to preserve and you want to add to the protected land that's here in Clinton.
Mhm.
And when I got on the commission, I the realities of life quickly came into being that you can't make these huge property acquisitions immediately. You need to walk before you run, and we needed the Conservation Commission needed some wins immediately, and so we've done a number of things that are kind of different
Mhm.
since I've been chairman.
So let's talk about some of those
Yeah,
things.
so one of the ones that I'm particularly proud of is we joined the pollinator pathway.
Which is what? People probably don't know what the pollinator pathway is.
So there's been a real crisis. The pollinators in basically the world are having their population shrunk by just huge numbers. And so what the pollinator pathway, and part of it is, there's overbuilding, there's too much fertilizer down, the fertilizer is killing the bees. So what the pollinator pathway tries to do is knit together properties that commit to building gardens that have native plants that are pollinators, that are not fertilized unnaturally. And if you can sort of build this pathway all along the eastern seaboard going out west, that helps these pollinators, migrate. It helps them have a broader environment, and hopefully we begin to get the numbers back up.
So define a pollinator.
Oh, pollinator is for the most part, it's a bee, or really we're focused on the bees and the butterflies.
Okay.
There are things like hummingbirds that are pollinators, but ultimately the bees are a population that's in crisis right now.
Okay.
And so I signed us up, I signed Clinton up as a town that wanted to participate in the pathway, the national organization. I created an inventory of all the properties that had pollinator gardens.
So gardens that would attract the pollinators, the bees, and the
Exactly.
butterflies, and
Yep,
things of that
yep.
nature. Okay. Yep.
And the goal is you're trying to create everything within, no greater space than quarter of a mile.
Okay.
And by doing that, it allows the pollinator to move from one garden to the next.
Great.
And not be fettered.
And you said this is a movement that's growing across the country?
It is.
So that pollinator path, is that something that you have in Clinton that'll go to Madison, Westbrook, or how many towns there have to be involved in order to keep that going?
Well, it's interesting. I kind of, along with a lot of things, I think Clinton was not punching its weight. Because Madison, Westbrook, Lyme, Old Saybrook, Chester, I don't think Killingworth has it yet. They were all members of it well before we were, and have much more established things. So we're playing catch up, but we're moving at a very fast clip. So we held 2 public education sessions. One here in the library, which, they've got a beautiful.
Oh, the library here is phenomenal.
Phenomenal. And educated the public on what a garden was and how to do it. And it's a lot of fun. It's so rewarding, Tom, I can't tell you.
Really?
Because, you walk out in the morning and you see all these bees and they're doing their thing.
As long as they don't sting you.
Butterflies. Yeah, well, these tend not to be the stinging
All right,
kind.
good, yeah.
And in addition to having these beautiful flowers, this is a very, very rewarding hobby to put.
Sure.
Everybody should get involved.
Now, let me just stop you there for a minute, if you don't mind. So when you say these gardens, these are all in the open spaces here in Clinton? So in other words, you're not saying, okay, everybody watching this should go out and, raise a pollinator garden?
No, I'm saying absolutely
They
that.
should. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
So we've dedicated about a quarter of our backyard to a pollinator
Perfect.
garden. The Elliots,
Sure.
who I know
Who's
you know,
royalty in town? Yes.
royalty in town,
Yeah.
although he says he's not from
I
here.
know. I know.
He's done it as well. And so we're building these bricks out so that the bees can thrive. And
Okay.
the more of these we have, the better for the bees.
So the private citizens are doing it in their own yards, like you and the
Yes.
Elliots and whatnot. But what about the town of Clinton? Are there open spaces in the town that you're also creating these gardens?
Funny you ask. Yeah, there is. And there we're working in concert with the Beautification Committee, which I'm also sort of
We'll
chairman
talk
of.
about them in a minute, too.
But there's a couple of areas that we're really working to develop as pollinator pathways,
Mhm.
and really doing it in such a way that it improves Clinton.
Sure.
So, as you know, there's the Indian River. It comes down through town,
Mhm.
goes under a bridge, and keeps going, right?
Right.
And along the side, right behind Coffee Break, there's just this strip along the water that had gotten overgrown, weedy, still is.
Mhm.
And we've just been gradually planting from the bridge along that pathway.
Okay.
But one of the problems that you'll see is that, the water actually from the parking lot comes streaming.
It picks up all that garbage and all the yuck in the
Picks up
parking
all
lot.
the garbage and deposits it, sadly, right into the Indian River.
Wow.
So we're working to create a vegetative buffer along that area so that some of that water is filtered by the garden.
Okay.
The garden is attractive for downtown Clinton. I'm hopeful that we can put a bench at the far end of it and sort of have an area that will be, part of the garden. And then ultimately, it's all a pollinator garden, so, it serves three functions all at once. And
So again, what would those three functions be? First of all, it's going to be a pollinator garden.
pollinator garden, attractive,
Mhm.
a little pocket park for Clinton. And then third is it filters the water a little bit from the parking lot, so it's not
Before it
going
goes into the Indian
directly-
River.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right now, they have a couple spillways where the water is channeled and goes directly into the river, and, it's not good for the river. As residents that live along the river, we want it to look nice.
Right.
And,
Yep.
so that's one project that we've taken on. Like I said, that's in conjunction and actually run more with the Beautification Committee.
Mm-hmm.
A member of the town council has been our sort of, our Sherpa, helping us figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, Carl Kildoff, the town manager, has dedicated some ARPA funds towards that because it is part of,
Well, let's talk about that. So there's obviously a cost involved to do that, correct?
Well, that's interesting. So the budget, when we started working on it, was like 20 grand.
When you say budget in conjunction with Carl and the town budget?
Exactly.
Okay. Yep.
But we felt that if we did it ourselves with the Beautification Committee and the Conservation Commission, we can bring that cost way, way down, into the $2,000-3,000 range.
And how would you do that?
Well, we'd do all the labor ourselves.
Okay. Yeah, that helps. Yeah.
So rather than, really hiring people to go and do this, we would, the town, Department of Public Works would come in and scrape up a little bit of the soil, deposit new soil, new rocks, do all that. We've got, just amazing people on the Beautification Committee understand what plants to plant and how to do it and how to make it look good. And then we helped out all summer during the drought, watering the area that we did develop already.
Mm-hmm.
And when we do this next section, we'll help with the watering and maintenance and really get that in tip-top shape that first couple years before again, these are native plants, so eventually they'll be able to run on their own, but first couple years they need help.
Now, what would be the disadvantage to doing that?
The disadvantage to doing
So, I mean,
that?
what would be any objection to something that's going to, number one, beautify the town, it's going to be a pollinator, it's going to help divert the water from going, all that yuck from the parking lot going into the river. What would be an objection to that?
Well, I don't think there is an objection. I mean, I
Okay.
think people want us to do it in a
Good.
very safe manner.
Yep.
We're actually using some plans that the University of Connecticut, in a study by their environmental studies department, came down and did.
Mhm.
So we're using work that they've done, and so it's pretty professionally planned,
Mhm.
and we're just going to execute on that a little bit.
That's great. But there will be some costs involved. Now, you mentioned ARPA money.
Yeah.
Now, explain what ARPA money is.
So that's federal relief money that the federal government gave to towns to enact things that helped do exactly what this is going to do.
Mhm.
And there's so many categories that projects can qualify for ARPA funding,
Mhm.
and this is one of those categories. So
So was that $20,000 you mentioned that was already in the budget, was that ARPA money that was set aside?
yes,
Okay, and so if you can do that for $2,000, then you're saving 18, if I do my math right? Okay.
you're good.
Okay, and then would you also then have the ability of using $18,000 for other projects the Conservation Committee might have?
Yeah, we've got a number of things. We're very ambitious over the next couple of years. Things like food waste recycling, that's a huge issue in the state right now, as you may or may not be aware. They're shutting down their trash burning facilities, and we really do need to solve this for the town of Clinton, because we're spending just a boatload of money for taking our trash from the transfer station, and it may get ultimately trucked out of town, out of state.
Wow.
And that gets very expensive. So if we can take food waste recycling and incorporate that in what we're already doing with things like leaf recycling and our stick recycling, then we can actually divert almost 28% of our waste stream from what would be trucked out of state,
Wow.
and instead be doing that. And it would be much more environmentally sound, and it would be something that the town could get behind. And again, we're sort of behind the curve here. A lot of the other towns are doing this, and we've been a little slow to get this started. But that's a project that we slated. Yeah, there's going to be some funds involved, but to be honest, it's going to save a lot more money long-term than it's going to cost to get this thing running.
Wow. Now, you say there's other towns that are doing it, so have you done some studies with those
Oh,
other
yeah.
towns to, for that 28%? That's a pretty significant saving.
Right. It's huge.
Yeah. And so that's my next question. So you come up with this project, you come up with these suggestions, these things you're working on. What's the next step you have to go through in order to make these things come to fruition?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. Generally, there's a lot of research that goes into this. So we don't just throw things out and hope they happen.
Right.
So with food waste recycling, I went to a couple conferences. We studied what other towns were doing. West Haven and Old Saybrook probably have the closest model to what we want to accomplish. There are other towns doing it using far more expensive processes, but they value, the environmental composting, rather than stuff ending up in the trash cycle, ending up composting and becoming this beautiful soil at the end of it.
Wow.
So, again, it's one of those things where I think if we do it smartly, we don't need to be like Madison and spend the ranch. We can.
Not that there's anything wrong with what
Not
we're
that
doing.
there's anything wrong.
with Madison.
I don't want to cast aspersions, but I think if you're doing it smart, West Haven said that their process is stone soup. In other words, they beg bleed. They're not
gotcha.
really. And I think that's what we can do, and it's very, very effective, and it would divert just a huge amount out of the town waste. So we've got that as one of our goals for this year. One of the things we tackled last year was the Dark Skies Project.
Which is, I'm sure people aren't aware of the Dark Skies Project.
Again, yeah, and
And that's one of the reasons, ladies and gentlemen, we're doing things like this. So a lot of things going on in town, we really don't have information about them, and that's why we hope the show informs you, and you can make an informative decision as to some of these issues that are facing the town. So, well, how many of you watching this right now know the Dark Sky Project? So explain that.
yeah, I didn't know about it either, so I don't blame anybody. But the Dark Skies Project, similar to what's going on with the Pollinator Pathway, the overabundance of nighttime lighting, particularly the town lighting, but also our resident lighting too, is causing disturbances in things like birds, bats, but even down to the foxes. It really has a pretty significant impact on wildlife that's out there. And so I don't know how long ago it started, but maybe like in the 20 years ago, people started studying this and they realized, oh, okay, it's not that hard to change lighting in such a way that you reduce the impact on nature. And so we lobbied the Planning and Zoning Commission last year, and we got a requirement so that new commercial buildings follow the Dark Skies mandate of how they do the lighting. And we're not really satisfied with that. We're going to start going after the town a little bit next, because again, the town lights. I don't know if you have one of those that shine in your bedroom at night. They are intrusive,
Yeah.
And they don't have to be. There are things that you can ring around those lights so that they're much more effective. They cover the area they're supposed to cover. They still provide residents with protection and safety, but they're not as sort of broadly based streaming out there. And what that does is, again, bats have places to fly where they're not in the light. Same with birds, and same with all the ground critters, which, I love waking up and seeing what came in on our camera.
Right, yeah. Wow, what's that fox doing?
Yeah, that's a coyote.
Yeah. So if, for the homeowners that are watching this, obviously, many of them might be abusing, the lights at night and stuff like that. What can they do to mitigate that exposure to these animals?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I've got to say, I'm probably as much an abuser as everybody else, because I've had Christmas lights up, and
right.
But once the Christmas lights come down, you just need to take a little care in, those big spotlights that we all have.
Yes.
that turn on automatically.
Right.
Imagine if you're a fox running across that.
Yeah. You did a good fox impression.
I did, yeah. I've been working on that. But yeah, no, it's so there can be some care. First of all, point those down.
Okay. Yeah.
Don't point them up.
Yep. Okay.
That's a big element. Reduce the wattage on the lights. You don't need the 150 watt light bulbs. You can probably get away with 45, 50 watt bulbs. Yeah, you're not going to light up your neighbor's lawns when you do that, but you're
Right.
going to give you're going to accomplish the residential security that you want.
Right.
A lot of them can be toned so that they're not on a hair trigger.
Okay.
Do that.
Could you talk to my wife Karen over the weekend about this? To reduce my electric bill, please.
Well, I can help you with that too.
Yeah,
So
all right.
one of the things we did last year from the Conservation Commission, and I do want to give this a very important plug.
Yep.
We contributed a infrared camera to the library. I don't know if you know it, but the library rents out all this incredible
amazing.
equipment.
Amazing.
It is. They call it their library of things, which I love.
Yeah.
But this infrared camera plugs into an iPhone or an iPad, and at night you can take a picture of your house, and you can see where all the heat's escaping.
Really?
Because it gradates the colors. So,
Wow.
if it's red, well, then you know that that's where heat's escaping. And so definitely come down to the library and take that out.
Yeah, so listen to that. I know in today's energy efficient society that we're trying to live in, it's nice to know if we have some hot spots in our house that maybe could use some improvement. So all you would do is come down to the library and just check it out, just like they check out a book.
Just like you check out a book.
And like you say, the treasury of things they have here. We did a show in the library, and I was just overwhelmed with Mary Beth and the things you can do here. It's incredible.
I got to say, this is like the unkept secret
It really is.
of Clinton.
It is.
The library.
Yep.
So
we got this. So we have this. We're working on the waste management. You're working on the the town, the beautification down by the river under where it comes down the parking lot. And so my other question was, so you decide, yeah, this is something we want to do. You've got the studies to back it up. You've done all the research. Well, do you have to go? Does the conservation committee just say we're going to do it? I mean, I imagine there's other committees you're going to have to work with in order to make these things come to fruition.
yeah, very much so. So, for example, the Indian River garden that we're starting. Well, we have started. We've done some really nice work along there. That was something the Conservation Commission had kicked around for really 2 or 3 years.
Wow.
And never got anywhere. And once the beautification committee started up, they've got the knowledge to make some of this stuff happen.
Mm-hmm.
And so they've been a wonderful, liaison that we can work with.
So let's talk briefly about your beautification committee. Is that separate from the conservation committee, or are they part of it?
Totally separate.
Totally separate. So let's talk a little bit about them, because you're also part of the beautification committee as well. So how do you interrelate with them, and what are their goals and objectives?
Right. Well, so it's a little different. We're really conservation in the Conservation Commission.
Yep.
And the Beautification Commission is really about beautification in the downtown area.
Mhm.
So whatever they can do, so they've done, or we've done, picking up trash on Earth Day. We probably brought in 25, 30 bags full of trash. It's great. We're
Yep.
going to do it again next Earth
So
Day.
come out and help next Earth Day.
Yeah, that's right.
Anybody who wants to come out and volunteer, please come out.
We actually had a ton of Morgan students that came
Oh, that's
out,
great.
which was great.
I didn't see Iris there.
I
But
don't know.
She's doing so many other things.
I
It's
know,
great.
really.
That's one thing she's not doing.
So that was one thing, but we're also looking, obviously the riverbank was a big project, and we've planted about 3 other areas in town so far. We've created these big planters that if you see them, there's 2 on either side of the bridge, crossing the Indian River, that we maintain, and that, as you enter into downtown, it gives it a good look. There's a
Good.
third one that's up near the bus stop in CVS, so that's, and we're looking to build on that in the new year.
Okay. So those are plantings, and those are, you're doing trash pickup and things with that to make it beautiful. But that's strictly what they're doing. And how does that interrelate with the EDC, the Economic Development Council, where they're trying to also beautify Clinton at the same time? Do you work it all together? That's my
Karen
wife.
Foster.
Yeah, that's my wife calling me to tell me to stop talking about her on TV.
Really good questions. We should be interacting more with the Economic Development Committee. One of the benefits of being in our neighborhood
Mhm.
is there's so many people that are on so many of the committees.
Right.
That we have these sort of informal get-togethers, and I find out what the Economic Development Committee is doing, and we let them know what we're up to. So
Good.
there is some sharing.
Good.
But I think there's some big things that we could start to accomplish together.
Okay.
To just, again, Clinton is such a unique asset that
Right.
with not too much effort, you could really spruce it up.
Absolutely. And so let's go back, let's just take the parking lot, for example, in back of Grande Pizza and whatnot. So you decide, okay, this is what we're gonna do, this is the plan works out. I mean, do you have to go through any approval system? Do you have to go before another board? Do you have to go before the town council? I mean, how does that come to fruition, the actual, logistics of it?
So, we've had kind of an informal process right now. So, since it's all volunteers and we're doing it all basically, not the vegetative buffer that we're gonna put in next year, hopefully, but the plantings that we did along the river this year, was all basically, our own plants, our own labor,
Wow.
our own watering. We had a watering schedule for everybody to come down and water because
Nice.
it was pretty brutal this summer for
Sure.
these plants. And And we kept those things going.
Great.
What we didn't do, which we should have, is coordinated with the DPW so they knew we were doing that.
Okay.
We had a little hiccup where they came and mowed down some of our plants.
Yeah, I can see why there should be some coordination there, yep.
But also, in general, we got to be better at reaching out and across these town committees and
Okay.
and things like that. We do keep in touch with Carl. Carl Kildoff knows what we're up to,
Okay,
and actually has been a tremendous guide in terms of what we should be doing, what we shouldn't be doing, and things like that. So
and then he can then navigate for you with some of these other committees?
exactly.
Okay. And if
Exactly.
there's funding that's involved, you let him know this is what we need, and then Carl will be the one that sort of spearheads getting those funds?
Yes and no. I mean, I think, so we've got some plans where we're gonna do some fundraising this summer, because we do wanna start trying to put some hanging baskets off our light poles.
Oh, okay.
And that's something where I think, the town businesses could sponsor a hanging basket.
Oh, nice.
And, so what, for the amount of stuff that we've done and the limited funds we've extracted from, the town gets good value from these
Absolutely,
commissions.
absolutely. So I guess that's my other question is, so you've got this $20,000 that was allocated, correct, as part of the town budget? So
Yeah.
what are you gonna do with that? You know, you talked about.
Well, it's not allocated to me, it's still in the town
Oh,
budget.
no, I know that, yeah.
So,
It's available for you.
it's available.
Sure.
There's some other areas where they have issues.
Mhm.
And I think, it has to solve a problem for the town for it to qualify for ARPA. And to be honest, I don't know all the ins and outs of ARPA funding and what qualifies and what doesn't.
But it's a federal grant.
It's a federal grant, and there are stipulations, so it's got to be done right.
Right.
Yeah, I think, I know Carl has his eyes on some areas. We've got our eyes on some areas. Would love for when you drive into Clinton from either direction on Route 1, there's a really nice garden as part of it. It's the first thing you see.
Right, that's important.
Just
First
sets
impressions.
Well, yeah, it sets the tone that Clinton's really, trying to spruce up our game.
That's good. Now, are there any other projects that you'd like the town to know about that, and the other thing, I guess, also, Nick, is for people watching this, if they want to contribute and they want to be part of it, would they contact you? Or
Sure.
who would they contact?
No, they should absolutely contact me. You can go on the town website and click on the Conservation Commission. All my email address is there and all of that.
Okay. And maybe for the people that don't want to go to that website.
Then it's just N as in Nick, Webb, W-E-B-B, 62 @gmail.com.
Great. So if you have any ideas or, things you'd like to talk to Nick about, or his commission, or the beautification committee, which I think is phenomenal. I mean, it's a great town, so why not keep it beautiful? Why not preserve the things we have and make them even better? And I think everything you're working on, Nick, is great. And is there any other thing that you like people to know about before we come to the
We've
end of the
been
interview?
pretty thorough here, Tom.
Good. Good.
You've really drawn it out.
And the other thing too is, if somebody wants to know about all these different projects and how the money is allocated and so on and so forth, you said there's a town website they can go to. Does it explain each one of these projects? To
No.
the type of depth that you've gone into?
Once a year, I have to submit to the town a list of projects that we're working on and basically what we've done this year.
Okay.
And then that gets published at the end of the year. And that's probably the best guide for everything that we've been involved in.
And how would I go about looking at that?
That's a really good question. I don't know the answer to that. I
Okay.
know it's published,
Okay.
but I don't know where in the website it is.
Okay. So maybe in the next show, one of the next shows we do, if you could let me know about that,
Sure.
then I can let people know. And now, how do you interact with the press and stuff? Is that something you can put in the Harbor News and say, hey, listen, I want to give you a copy of the projects they're working on? Especially, you're a person of the week. So now you got an in with Harbor News.
That was embarrassing.
No, it wasn't embarrassing. It was well-deserved. It was well-deserved.
No, there's so many more people that
Yeah.
deserve it more than me.
Could they publish something like that?
Yeah,
for
they
you?
would. And, I've been terrible at doing the PR work for these committees, and I need to get better because they've offered, and I just need to reach out to them when we're doing some of these really, things like the trash pickup, the more the merrier, right? The more people we get there, the better.
Sure.
So that would have been, and that we did broadcast out.
Good.
We do have, the other project that we really have been good about reaching out is we're trying to get ahead of Japanese knotweed. And again,
Whoa, Japanese knotweed. I know Iris, that's one of her favorite topics.
You may ask, what is Japanese knotweed? It is just the most devastating invasive plant you can possibly imagine.
Really?
It definitely lives along our waterways. Connecticut has been infested by it. But to give you an idea of just how bad this weed is, and you don't want it anywhere near your house,
Right.
is it'll actually grow right through your foundation.
Wow.
I know.
So the question is, how do you prevent it, Nick?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's not an easy answer. So
Well, how do you identify a Japanese knot?
So I did put out, at various stages of the year last year, we did go to social media. We went to Nextdoor, we went to All Things Clinton, which is a Facebook
Yep.
website. We also put it up on the town website, just a one-page flyer with some pictures of what Japanese knotweed looks like in its various stages.
And
So
where was that? Where could people see that?
that was on the town website.
Okay.
I'm sure it still is,
Okay.
but we'll do it again this year. Basically, right now it's kind of dormant, so people won't follow up on it. But in the spring, it has a certain way it looks. Changes to fall, where it's this white sort of flowery kind of plant, and it is easy to identify with the pictures because it sort of has these offset leaves up the stem, and it has red veins on the leaves. And anyway, this is one that we want to raise awareness of in the town about Japanese knotweed, because getting it early is really your only hope. You just probably the best way to do is don't try and dig it up. Just cut it, bag the knotweed. It's unbelievably quick to proliferate, so put it in, double bag it, and then after you cut it, make sure you rinse your cutting shears in alcohol.
Really?
It's that serious, yeah.
Wow. So,
But if you do that,
yeah.
and you do it for a year, you have a chance. Just to give you an idea of how hard it is to get rid of it, the Bronx Botanical Garden, which is probably one of the preeminent botanical gardens, they've had a knotweed problem for 5-6 years.
Really?
Every year they go out and try and eradicate it, and every year it just gets worse. So you can use some poisons on it, and that probably is another route to it.
and that would have an environmental impact, though, wouldn't
It does. We actually listed a couple of the chemicals that work that aren't as invasive. And if you're near a waterway, and a lot of this stuff does grow near waterways, then you've got to be careful. And if you're going to do a lot of that, you probably should go to the Inland Waterways Commission and just make sure they know what you're up to. They may
Wow.
give you some guidance.
Great.
But we did put out a one-pager that helped people identify it,
Mhm.
and then what to do about it if you do have it.
Okay, just
And-
one more time. Where would people find that one pager?
So it is on the website.
Okay,
We do, every year, we will publicize it in All Things Clinton and Nextdoor.
okay, perfect. Because I think that's something people definitely need to know about.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the spring and later again in the fall, when it really changes what it looks like, we publicize it.
That's great. Well, Nick, I can see why you're person of the week. I mean, the stuff, no, I'm serious. The things you're doing for the town, and, the thing people don't understand is these aren't, it's elected office, yes, but these are all volunteers. And
All volunteers.
Everybody that's working with you is a volunteer. You're a volunteer. Iris is a volunteer. I'm a volunteer. It's people who care about Clinton. And I think
Yeah.
it's nice to know there are people like you, people like Iris who'll come out and, help the town. And I think we need more people like that. And I think it's great that we can do stuff like this and shows like this to highlight people like yourselves and what the Conservation Commission is doing. And I thank you for your efforts. And it's nice to have you as a neighbor, and it's nice to know that I've got somebody I can go talk to if I've got that Japanese, Japanese weed in my yard and how to get rid of it. But again, thank you so much for all your hard work for the town, Nick. We really appreciate it. And again, hopefully, once this once this tape is available, we'll give it to you, and you can share it with the Conservation Committee. Maybe this can also be a venue for you to let people know about exactly what you're doing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you for doing this,
So I
Tom.
thank you very
really do
much.
appreciate it.
And good luck, and Happy New Year to you and all the people of Clinton, and to your lovely wife, Susan, your beautiful daughter. So this is Tom Foster, along with Nick Webb, Iris Dunham behind the camera, my editor, camera person, and everything extraordinaire, thanking you for watching tonight's Talk of the Town, and we'll see you again on another upcoming show. Good night, everyone.